Well, the talk has always been in the economics community, whenever I've had conversations with folks like yourself, is higher interest rates usually make the price go down. And we haven't seen it yet. I've had this conversation for a few other people in the past, and it didn't happen in 2022. So we'll see if it happens in 2023. So then I have to ask you, you're an economist. Where do you think the Fed's going to stop on the interest rate rise?
The
Where do you
Fed
think
will
they have to stop?
they'll stop when inflation gets under control. And I think that is the best leading indicator we have for where the Fed's going to go in 2023 is, do we see inflation start to come down? And one of the questions I have is, okay, does the Fed uh, pause once we get to 5% inflation or 4% or 3%? 2% has been that long run trend. I think the pressure for them to back off interest rates will get pretty severe before they get to 2%. But the idea here is, do they get inflation back in the bottle, back to 2%, and can they keep it in there? Um, that's sort of the long-term question. The short-term question is, where does inflation go the next 6 months, the next 12 months? And that will tell us how aggressive the Fed has to be. 425 basis points, to be honest, a year ago, I'd have said seemed like a very low probability outcome. But we did that, and we did that really quickly. We haven't seen 425 basis points of hikes since the 80s. Um, and I think, another 425 basis points would create a lot of challenges for producers, both servicing debt, borrowing new money, but also farmland markets and farmland values and all that else. So we'll see how that plays out. So I guess the message here is, let's hope that inflation gets under control and the Fed doesn't have to be nearly as aggressive in the next 12 months.
And we're all watching that, and it's really important. One last chance for anybody to join in the conversation and ask a question. David, this has been a fascinating conversation. I'll give these folks a couple more minutes. Just watching the interest rate, I know Larry Summers is quoted in Fortune a few months ago that he thinks they got to go to 5.5% for the interest rate to get it to get to the target they want. We'll see where that goes, because I know that the head of the Federal Reserve has got seen that number creep up more than a lot of people do, but then they also did a slower increase on that last raise. So that's one we're all watching, because that just has such a hammer on everybody's head. So
I think
definitely.
Larry Summers has been an interesting person to watch, and every time he speaks or writes, I try to capture that. He has kind of been a a critical voice that you wouldn't expect to be as critical, and he's had some careful thoughts about how that would. He's been very articulate. He can explain
Yeah.
these in a really well done way. So if you're out there listening, you want some interesting thoughts, I would recommend following Larry Sumner's and reading some of his work. But even amongst the Fed voting members,
Yeah.
there's a disagreement as to where rates are going to be. It's not just 2023; it's 24 and 25. How quickly can they start to bring them down, and what does the long run normal look like?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. Well, David Wimmer, I really thank you for your time today. This has been a fantastic conversation. Appreciate you joining us here at Farm Progress 365. We're running out of time. And thank you for bringing all the topics you brought forward. I hope the farmers watching this understand that these are just warnings posts to pay attention to into 2023 and beyond. And thanks for the advice on stepping back. I think the best line you had, of course, was to predict is human and to position is management. That's a dude, that's like a bumper sticker. I think that would be great. So